Dear listeners, welcome to History with Herodotus, where we embark on a journey through the vast expanse of human experience, seeking to illuminate the mysteries of our past. Today, we set sail on the uncharted waters of the age of exploration, Columbus and beyond, an era that would forever alter the course of human history. As we delve into this fascinating period, let us begin by exploring the earliest whispers of this age, the precursors who laid the groundwork for the brave explorers who dared to challenge the unknown. In the late 13th century, the Mediterranean world was abuzz with maritime activity, as merchant ships and sailors from Italy, Greece, and other regions navigated the busy trade routes between Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. The city-states of Italy, particularly Genoa and Venice, played a significant role in the development of maritime commerce, establishing trade relationships with the Byzantine Empire, the Islamic world, and the kingdoms of Western Europe. One of the key figures in this early period was Marco Polo, the Venetian merchant who traveled to China in the late 13th century, opening up new trade routes and sparking a wave of interest in exploration and discovery. His travels, documented in his famous book, Il Milione, inspired a generation of explorers and merchants, including the Vivaldi brothers, who attempted to reach Asia by sea in the late 13th century. As we move into the 14th century, we find that the maritime powers of Europe were beginning to expand their horizons, establishing trade routes and colonies in the Atlantic. The Portuguese, in particular, played a significant role in this process, establishing a series of trading posts and fortresses along the coast of West Africa. The introduction of new technologies, such as the stern-post rudder and the astrolabe, enabled navigators to sail more efficiently and determine their latitude with greater precision. In 1291, the Vivaldi brothers set sail from Genoa, bound for Asia by a western route, but they never returned. Their voyage marked the beginning of a new era in maritime exploration, as European sailors and merchants began to venture further and further into the unknown. The early 15th century saw a series of expeditions sponsored by Prince Henry the Navigator of Portugal, who sought to establish trade routes and colonies along the coast of West Africa. One of the most significant figures of this period was Tadisio Doria, a Genoese merchant who sailed to the coast of West Africa in search of new trade opportunities. His voyages laid the foundation for the development of a robust maritime infrastructure, including advances in shipbuilding, navigation, and cartography. The introduction of the caravel, a lightweight and maneuverable ship, enabled navigators to explore the coastal waters of Africa with greater ease. As we explore the historical context of this period, we find that the rise of maritime exploration was closely tied to the growth of trade and commerce in Europe. The establishment of trade routes between Italy, North Africa, and the Middle East created a demand for new navigation techniques, cartographic tools, and shipbuilding technologies. The city-states of Italy, particularly Genoa and Venice, played a significant role in the development of these technologies, which would later be used by explorers like Columbus to traverse the Atlantic. The year 1405 marked a significant turning point in the history of maritime exploration, as Prince Henry the Navigator began to sponsor a series of expeditions along the coast of West Africa. These voyages, led by explorers such as Gil Aines and Nuno Tristão, pushed the boundaries of the known world, establishing trade routes and mapping the coastline of Africa. The late 15th century marked a turning point in maritime history, as European powers began to invest heavily in exploration and discovery. The Catholic monarchs of Spain, Ferdinand II of Aragon and Isabella I of Castile, sponsored Christopher Columbus's first voyage across the Atlantic in 1492. This journey, which resulted in the European discovery of the Caribbean, opened up a new era of transatlantic trade and cultural exchange. Columbus's voyages were not without controversy, however. His arrival in the New World had a profound impact on the indigenous populations he encountered, leading to the displacement, exploitation, and devastation of native communities. The Taino people of Hispaniola, for example, suffered greatly under Spanish rule, with many dying from diseases brought over by European colonizers. As we navigate the complex and often fraught history of this period, it's essential to acknowledge the darker aspects of exploration and colonization. However, it's also important to recognize the sense of wonder and curiosity that drove explorers like Columbus to push beyond the boundaries of the known world. The discovery of new lands, resources, and cultures sparked a wave of interest in geography, cartography, and natural history, laying the foundations for modern scientific inquiry. The early 16th century saw a series of expeditions sponsored by European powers, including the Portuguese, Spanish, French, and English. Vasco da Gama's voyage to India in 1497–1499 established a new trade route between Europe and Asia, while Ferdinand Magellan's circumnavigation of the globe in 1519–1522 proved that it was possible to reach the Spice Islands of Indonesia by sailing west across the Atlantic. One of the most significant consequences of these expeditions was the transfer of plants, animals, and diseases between the Old and New Worlds. The Columbian Exchange, as it's known, had a profound impact on the ecosystems and cultures of both hemispheres, leading to the introduction of new crops like maize and potatoes in Europe, and the spread of diseases like smallpox and influenza in the Americas. As we explore the historical context of this period, we find that the rise of maritime exploration was closely tied to the growth of trade and commerce in Europe. The establishment of trade routes between Europe, Africa, and Asia created a demand for new navigation techniques, cartographic tools, and shipbuilding technologies. The city-states of Italy, particularly Genoa and Venice, played a significant role in the development of these technologies, which would later be used by explorers like Columbus to traverse the Atlantic. The year 1494 marked a significant turning point in the history of maritime exploration, as the Treaty of Tordesillas divided the New World between Spain and Portugal. This agreement, which was brokered by the Pope, recognized Spanish claims to the Caribbean and South America, while granting Portugal control over Brazil and the coast of West Africa. The 16th and 17th centuries saw a significant increase in European colonization, as powers such as Spain, Portugal, France, and England established settlements and trading posts across the Americas, Africa, and Asia. This period was marked by the transfer of wealth, resources, and cultures between the Old and New Worlds, with profound consequences for indigenous populations and the environment. One of the most significant consequences of European expansion was the devastating impact on native populations. The introduction of diseases such as smallpox, measles, and influenza, to which Native Americans had no immunity, led to widespread epidemics and population decline. For example, the population of Hispaniola, which was estimated to be around 1 million in 1492, declined to just 60,000 by the mid-16th century. The colonization of the Americas also led to the transatlantic slave trade, one of the most horrific crimes in human history. Millions of Africans were forcibly enslaved and transported across the Atlantic, with many dying during the journey or in captivity. The legacy of slavery continues to impact communities around the world today, with ongoing struggles for justice, equality, and reconciliation. Despite these darker aspects of exploration and colonization, it's also important to recognize the significant cultural and scientific exchanges that took place during this period. The discovery of new lands, resources, and cultures sparked a wave of interest in geography, cartography, and natural history, laying the foundations for modern scientific inquiry. For example, the Spanish conquistador Hernán Cortés's encounter with the Aztec Empire led to a greater understanding of Mesoamerican astronomy and mathematics. The later stages of the Age of Exploration also saw the rise of new European powers, such as the Dutch and the English, who challenged the dominance of Spain and Portugal. This period was marked by a series of conflicts, including the 80 Years' War and the Anglo-Spanish War, which had significant implications for the balance of power in Europe and beyond. The transfer of plants, animals, and cultures between the Old and New Worlds shaped the course of human history, leading to new technologies, economies, and societies. However, it's also essential to acknowledge the darker aspects of this era, including the exploitation, displacement, and devastation of native communities. As the Spanish philosopher José Ortega y Gasset once said, the discovery of America was not just a geographical event, but a metaphysical one. The age of exploration marked a fundamental shift in human understanding, as people began to see themselves as part of a larger global community. Today, we continue to grapple with the consequences of this era, seeking to balance our desire for knowledge and progress with our responsibility to respect and protect the cultures and environments that make our world so rich and diverse. As we navigate the challenges of our own time, it's essential to remember the lessons of the past, seeking to build a more just, equitable, and sustainable world for all. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the uncharted waters of history. That's all for today's History with Herodotus. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and until next time, remember that to understand the present, we must first understand the past.